President Marcos wants a maritime pact between the Philippines and Vietnam amid tensions in the South China Sea. Mr. Marcos discussed the signing of the planned deal during the farewell call of Vietnam's outgoing ambassador to the Philippines, Hoang Huy Chung. The president called the deal's realization a very big step for both countries. Joining us now via Zoom to discuss these and other issues is UP Institute for Maritime Affairs, J. Batongbacal. Professor, thank you so much for joining us. Is this planned Philippine-Vietnam maritime deal feasible?
Oh, yes, I think it is quite feasible. The Philippines and Vietnam have always had very good relations despite these disputes. Even though they have competing claims, they have been able to get past those differences and work together. For example, in 1999, the Philippines and Vietnam worked together in order to push the negotiations for what became the 2002 Declaration of Conduct. And there have been some incidents which involve also Vietnamese and Philippine troops. And despite that, we have had better relations than any other country that also has claims in the South China Sea.
But Professor, in May, Vietnam criticized both the Philippines and China in relation to their activities in the South China Sea or West Philippine Sea.
Yes, but that is to be expected in the same way that we would also be sending protests, I'm sure, for any of their activities that we find. No, but what is important to note is that unlike China, Vietnam does not send its vessels into our EEZ. Vietnam does not interfere with our activities in the same way, in the way that China does. And in fact, there have been several instances where Philippine troops, for example, have been allowed to play with Vietnamese counterparts on the Vietnamese-held islands, and then vice versa. We've had troop exchanges essentially as a means of generating goodwill. So that tells you how much better our relationship is with Vietnam despite these disputes.
So how soon do you think will this maritime deal happen?
Well, I have no idea of the details, but it all depends on what is the extent of cooperation that the two countries wish to engage in. For sure, there have already been examples of such cooperation, but these were without a legal framework or a deal, an overarching deal. No, so this kind of formalization of the cooperation between two countries should certainly be a good step forward because it really formalizes their relationship with respect to these disputes.
Okay, formalizes with regards to these ongoing disputes because both countries are claimants of the South China Sea or the West Philippine Sea. But Professor, will this really bring stability in the South China Sea or the West Philippine Sea? Will China turn over or share claim?
No. Well, between the Philippines and China, and Vietnam, I'm sure China will be objecting to this because it doesn't like any indication that the claimant countries, the smaller claimant countries, are sort of getting together. But between the Philippines and Vietnam, it certainly helps because unlike with China, no, any potential frictions with Vietnam could be more easily handled and discussed between the parties. No, and the formalization of this cooperation actually embodies the aspirations of the ASEAN-China Declaration of Conduct of 2002, where all the parties committed to engage in maritime cooperation. So this is a good example. This would be a good example implementing that original commitment. So I would expect that the Philippines and Vietnam, in fact, could become leaders in the way that disputes move forward, no? Showing instead that they're taking steps towards really seriously and sincerely resolving the disputes and managing them towards dispute settlement.
Our Navy personnel in the BRB Sierra Madre need new supplies very, very soon. What do you think will materialize when the Navy or the Coast Guard sends new supplies to the BRP Sierra Madre? Are we likely to have another water cannon incident?
Well, I certainly hope not, but I think that the last incident has already brought the attention of the world to the area. So I don't think that China will want to have a repeat of that. It's very clear from this incident that it is China that is causing problems. It is the one that is actively interfering with our activities and trying to change the status quo. So with all eyes on us now, when we go back there, I think that that will be deterrence, enough deterrence for them to try something like this again.
So when we go back there, Professor, should we also send more ships to protect the BRP Shermadia? Because AFP Chief of Staff General Bronner said there are no plans yet to add ships in the Yungin Shoal.
Well, I leave that to the Navy and Defense Department. I think that the number of ships to be sent there also depends on the government and its assessment of whether it is necessary and whether sending more ships are likely to cause greater tensions. But now, given that the incident has already happened, I'm sure that there have been discussions already, or there are at least ongoing discussions to try to prevent a worsening of the situation.
Professor, thank you so much for your insights. Batongbacal from the Institute for Maritime Affairs.